Hey now, St. Patty's Day is coming up, so I thought, hey, why don't we make a sourdough to help celebrate that? So I thought, make one that's green, has some Lucky Charms in it, because what cereal is more Irish than that? Yeah, come along for the ride. So to initially make this dough, you can see I'm wearing my gloves here because I don't want to get my hands all green. I'm going to be using just white, all-purpose, unbleached flour. I'm going with that because that should take on the color the nicest. Now, I'm going with 500 grams of that, and all of my other ingredients here are going to be using the baker's percentage, which is a percentage of this 500 grams. So any of the ingredients that I'm using, I'm going to be just multiplying by that percentage. That will tell me the weight that I need for the other ingredients. That way you can scale this for any size of dough. So to start off with here, I'm going with the 75% hydration. So that basically translates into 375 grams or mils of unfiltered water. To that, I'm going to be adding 1.8% of just pink sea salt. So that's 9 grams of sea salt. I'm going to be adding a little bit of sugar. I know that the Lucky Charms will be sweet, but let's get just a little bit of sweetness into the bread itself here as well. Going with 5% or 25 grams of that just white table sugar. And I'm going to whisk it just for a second here to help get that all into suspension. And that'll help just with a little bit more even distribution of that. A little bit in the bottom there. Not super worried about that. And what I am worried about is being a terrible mess here. I'm going to be adding some green food coloring. I'm not telling you how much because I don't know how much I just put in there. And that will really sort of depend on the type of food coloring that you're trying to use. Now this is looking like extremely dark green right now, but I'm guessing that's going to change once I add this flour here, which I'm going to do right now. So again, that's 500 grams of this white, unbleached, all-purpose flour. I'm just going to start to mix it in here for a couple of minutes, and we'll see what the color turns out to be. One nice thing about these colored sourdoughs, or if you have cocoa or something like it in there, is that you know when you've thoroughly mixed everything because you can't find any other pockets of white. So this is done. I'm going to scrape off my glove here, and then I'm going to let this sourdough sit. I'm going to cover it up with some plastic wrap, give it about an hour just for this hydration or autolyse phase to take place. Now, upon reflection, we decided we didn't like that color of green, so I'm making another loaf here. I just mixed the dough exactly the same, but with a lighter food coloring. It's a much brighter green. I almost think that's like Slimer from Ghostbusters green, the cartoon. I like it. Anyway, I've got my leaven here. It's all nice and pillowy. It's ready to go. I'm going to be adding 125 grams of that, which will be in that 25% range based on the baker's percentage. And now to mix this, I'm just going to moisten my fingers here with some of that filtered water, jam this in, and then I'm going to mix it using these little pinch and folds. It'll take a couple of minutes, and again, because of this darker color of the dough, you'll know that it's all incorporated when you can't see any more of that white leaven. And there we are, all nicely mixed in. So I'm going to cover this up with plastic and give it about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I'm going to perform a stretch and fold on this dough. I like doing this on my quartz countertop here as it allows for just enough sticking of the dough, but it will still release and it doesn't get super hung up on it. Wow, this is a very moist dough. No big deal though. I want it like that because I'm sure that the actual cereal is going to soak up a bunch of this moisture. So good to go. I'm going to cover this back up under the plastic and give it 30 minutes. So after that 30 minutes, it's time to do the lamination. I'm just going to do this right on my quartz countertop. I find that with this countertop, I don't have to wet it down or anything like that. Everything sort of sticks well enough but can still be scraped up. So I'm just stretching this out to a bit of a mat. I find that this serves the dual purpose of not only kind of creating a stretch and fold, if you will, situation, as well as opening things up in order to allow me to add a bunch of the sweet Lucky Charms. And as you can see, it's a sizable quantity, but this is by weight only 15% or at 75 grams of Lucky Charms. You'll also notice that I went rather marshmallow heavy, like any good kid would do, going through there. getting as many of those marshmallows out of the box as I could. So now I'm just going to add some down the middle strip here, sort of broken into relative thirds. Like that. Just grabbing my bench knife, just to help make sure I can scoop this up. I'm going to fold that over top. And then, still just using some filtered water, moistening my fingers to pat that down. And then again, over this third here, sprinkling more. Loosen that up again. Just going to fold that up over top. 2 more additions here. We'll go right for the very middle. It's getting hard. My fingers are getting a little bit sticky from the dough. Just fold up like that. And then up on this top part here. Oh, I think we're going to manage to get all of them into there. Fantastic. Ooh, oh, I lied. I dropped one on the floor. All right. And then scooping that up there. Now the final step is I'm just going to pick this up and try to kind of just wrap it up to a nice contained little ball here. I'm going to plunk it back into the bowl, cover it up, and give it another 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we are ready to play with this here again. So I'm just going to pull it out. And now what I would normally like to do would be to try to do some sort of a coil fold or something, but because we're so jam-packed full of all this delicious stuff, I'm just doing sort of what I like to refer to as a modified coil fold, just kind of stretching things over a little bit. Certainly not as effective as a regular coil fold, but it's probably better than nothing. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it back in here, and possibly one more coil fold, and then just letting it continue to bulk ferment. Just after 2.5 hours after that single modified coil fold that I did, I decided not to do any of them after that. I'm believing this is fully fermented and ready to go, so I'm just flouring my hand, and I'm going to get this out onto So we've got this out onto the island here, and I'm just, still a little bit moist. Just going to use my bench knife to help do a little pre-shape here on this. I'm going to give this maybe 5 minutes here, and then we'll do a final shape. After I gave that a little rest, just going to once again flour up here. Just give it a final little pre-shaping. And then a decent amount of rice flour on it. I'm just worried about this being a little bit sticky. I also have my banneton with the liner in there that also has a bunch of rice flour on it. I'm going to cover this up with plastic and get it into the fridge and just let it cold ferment overnight. It is the next day and it's time to bake. I've got my oven preheated at 500 degrees with the cast iron combo cooker in there. So we are ready to go. It's been hot for quite some time now. Just gonna flip over, came out beautifully. Let's go ahead and I'm just gonna give it a little score here. And I'm gonna get it in the oven. I'll reduce the temperature down to 440 degrees. I'm going to give it about 35 minutes at that temperature. After that 35 minutes, oh yeah, let's take off that lid. Now, because this is a sweeter bread, I'm also going to remove it from the cast iron and place it directly on the grate, and that should help prevent excessive scorching on the bottom. We're going to drop the temperature down to 430 degrees and give it about 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, we're going to pop this out of the oven. Get it off the parchment. Now I could leave it like this, but I thought it would be kind of fun to decorate the outside while it's still hot here. I just made an icing sugar glaze. This was a 4-to-1 icing sugar to water ratio glaze, which is nice and kind of nice and drippy. I'm just going to use this basting brush to get some of it on here. And of course, since this bread is still so hot, it should just ooze all over it. And then I've got some extra Lucky Charms. Those kind of Sprinkle them over. Let's see how much I can accidentally drop on the floor while I'm doing that. And hopefully with that glaze on, some of these should stick. Any that fall off, I get to eat afterwards. So this is obviously one of those instances where we have gone from simply bread to dessert. So I went ahead and made a slightly thinner glaze that I am just drizzling over top of those Lucky Charms, which will hopefully help secure them a little bit better in place when we go to slice. We'll see. Who knows? Worst case scenario, I just added extra sugar. So there we are. Let that cool down. Who's excited for St. Patrick's Day bread?
Me!
No, who? Who is?
Me!
Okay. Should we slice into it?
Yeah!
Oh my.
Wonder what it looks
All right. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. I have a feeling a bunch of this stuff's going to fall off.
Totally. Ooh la la.
Yeah. I would say that the Lucky Charms are almost more so for decoration, for presentation, for when you make this bread, and if you give it to somebody as a gift or something like that. But let's check out the inside. Whoa! Look how green that is. That is freaking
So
super green. And you can see that there's
green.
some of those Lucky Charms in there throughout. Awesome. Should we slice this up and try it?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do it. Okay. I offered to toast this for them. They refused. They just wanted to eat it immediately. So, well, go ahead. Ooh. Let me have a little nibble. Well, that's yummy bread. What do you think?
Amazing.
Yeah?
Incredible.
Incredible. Does it taste like St. Patrick's Day?
And it's also, it tastes like greenness.
Tastes like green. Yeah? All right. I think we took it to 11. What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah? Ooh.